again to another Agricultural React, and today we will be watching how Clarkson's farm exposes the farming industry from Pat Memmer, the new channel. Obviously I heard and I watched some of the Top Gear back in the time when Clarkson was still a host of the Top Gear, and I watched an episode or two of the Clarkson's family. It was farm. It was funny. It was interesting, but I never really got back to it. So yeah, let's just watch it and just see.
Over the last few years, outside of the realm of the motoring world, Jeremy Clarkson has become an unlikely figurehead within the farming zeitgeist. Although he may not be the best farmer or political activist in the world, he does have a very large platform in which he can speak for the unheard in the farming community, mainly thanks to his incredibly successful TV show. So when the government announced the autumn budget to tackle a £20 billion black hole, it detailed an inheritance tax on farmers with agricultural assets over £1 million. Clarkson became very vocal on the situation.
Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government?
According to the government, the change will not impact the majority of farmers. Estates worth up to £3 million could still be passed on by a couple completely free of inheritance tax, and that this will just affect the wealthiest landowners and disincentivize buying agricultural land to avoid tax. However, farming groups have argued that this policy change is a threat to the future of family farming. Like most things in politics, it's a subject that has split the nation completely down the middle. And obviously, this topic is a lot bigger than Clarkson. But whether people or Jeremy like it or not, he's become highly influential through his farm show, which got more viewers than the billion-dollar funded Lord of the Rings show. So by default, Clarkson has somehow become the biggest public figure and voice for farmers. If you want to find out how this happened, you can watch this video that I made. But first, thank you to today's sponsor, Proton Mail. Proton Mail is an email service that protects your email contents with end-to-end encryption and zero-access encryption, which means any of your messages and attachments can only be seen and decrypted by you and the people that you choose to share your data with. Not even Proton can see it, so any of your weird messages are safe and hidden away. They even did a TED Talk explaining how they felt inspired to protect people's data against big tech. Unlike major corporations, Proton doesn't monetize your data and doesn't build a profile about you to target you with ads. Another great benefit to Proton Mail is that it does it all in one. Email, drives, docs, VPN, and password manager. It makes the whole chore of internet security so much easier having it all in one place. You can also seamlessly switch between continents if you want, which comes in handy if you're trying to watch certain films on streaming platforms.
You see what's written down there? You can watch this video that I made. Right, that's been paid. Back to the video.
So make sure to sign up for Proton Mail using the link in the description of this video. Right, well that's me paid. Back to the video. But with Jeremy taking a stand with this policy, many have pointed to a quote that he provided when he was asked why he bought his £4.2 million farm. Land is a better investment than any bank can offer. The government doesn't get any money when I die, and the price of food that I grow can only go up. But there is another much more important reason: I can now have a quad bike. So essentially, part of the reason why he bought his farm was because you didn't have to pay death duties on land. However, he addressed his previous comments in a recent interview, stating, "I never did admit why I really bought it. I wanted to have a shoot. I was very naive. I just thought it'd be a better PR story if I'd said I bought it to avoid paying tax." He also said that he doesn't want to be the public face of the movement, saying it should be led by farmers, and that he doesn't consider himself to be a farmer, but feels it's his job to report on farming and shine a light on rural poverty in the industry. One of the problems we have on the show is we're not showing the poverty either, because obviously on Diddly Squat there isn't any poverty. But trust me, there is absolute poverty. I'm surrounded by farmers. I'm not going out for dinner with James Dyson. It's people with 200, 400 acres, way past Rachel Reeves' threshold. They are fucked. While the assumption that farmers are rich may be accurate when looking through a Clarkson lens, there is always the other end of the spectrum. People could be asset rich but cash poor, or working for low wages, or not taking a wage at all. For a lot of farmers it's a cultural thing, a family run business, doing a job which most wouldn't choose to do. An element of this tax being such a sting to farmers is also the feeling of betrayal of Keir Starmer. In February 2023, he spoke at the National Union of Farmers in front of 3,000 farmers, stating that there wouldn't be any tax rises. However, some of the public also feel a lack of sympathy for farmers because the majority of them voted for Brexit, which didn't exactly go brilliantly. Two young farmers broke down the inheritance tax and how it affects them by using Clarkson's farm as an example.
This here is Clarkson's farm, which spans 1,000 acres. Assuming his land is worth £10,000 an acre, his children will have an inheritance tax bill of 1.8 million, or 2.5 million, spreading that cost over 10 years at 7.5% interest. Most farmers are considered asset rich and cash poor. As you can see here, the farm's profit cannot facilitate the added debt from inheritance tax, and therefore the children must sell part of the land in order to continue farming. You may be thinking, what does that mean to me? But the amount of land being bought by UK farmers in 2023 dropped by 8%, and the amount bought by institutional investors rose by 13%. The public need to ask themselves, who do they want owning the land in the UK? British farmers who've been farming the land for generations, or big corporations buying up land to offset carbon emissions?
On the 9th of November, Jeremy wrote in The Sun, stating, "They want to carpet bomb our farmland with new towns for immigrants and net zero wind farms. But before they can do that, they have to ethnically cleanse the countryside of farmers." As a result of this budget, the National Farmers Union organised a protest in London on the 19th of November 2024. In a message to its 55,000 members, the union strongly urged those who had not been registered to stay away from the capital. This is mainly because union organisers had allegedly been told to restrict numbers to 1,800 people, after 10,000 people were initially scheduled to attend. Clarkson had originally planned to organise a coach to ferry local farmers to London, stating, "We wanted to protest in a dignified and sensible way, which was why I booked the coach rather than causing disruption with tractors and farming vehicles. Perhaps if I draped my tractor in a Palestinian flag, it would be different. It seems that if you're from Just Stop Oil or protesting about Gaza, you can do what you want." However, the Metropolitan Police refuted the alleged claims, stating that the force has not banned anyone from marching on this day, and officers will work with anyone wishing to organise a peaceful protest. Ahead of the protest, Jeremy's right-hand man Caleb, who is now one of the biggest voices for young farmers, along with Clarkson's land agent Charlie Island, spoke in an interview about the inheritance tax.
Initially, the government's taken away probably about £400 million worth of direct payments over the next 2 or 3 years, and that's had a massive impact on businesses' cash flows, got a heightening in costs and that reduction in income. And this is off the back of tough years in terms of weather, where production has been lower. So the backdrop of the budget comes at a time where actually farming businesses are struggling. The government's been in place for 3 or 4 months, so it's come out and basically said this is how we want to deal with the farming in the countryside. They're so far removed from actually the business of farming and the day-to-day operation. We were faced with high prices following the Ukraine war for inputs, and yet low sales prices. So dairy, beef, sheep, arable, the whole sector's had a massive pay cut already.
If you don't get the investment, you will be hit with food shortages straight away. And no farmer's willing to invest in putting crops in the ground. And unfortunately, after the next year, you're not going to have the same amount of wheat. Therefore, you have to import it. Well, yeah, okay, you can import it, but the standards up here, like we're producing food here. And for example, we've already seen the floods in Spain. Well, if that comes out and wipes out, for example, all of Ukraine, so for example, if the Ukraine floods or if Russia floods or anyone like that, and then we have a shortage of wheat and we're not growing it here because we're importing everything, we're relying on another country. Well, at the moment, who knows what the weather's going to do? So therefore, why are we not just growing food here to feed our nation?
Yeah, it's true though. That's what happens though, isn't it? A lot of countries and things like that just are not investing in farming, and then they import the food, and then that food the places where they grow that food for export and stuff like get hit by natural disaster, and then now that they are short of food, the places that they're relying on them are gonna be short of food as well. And that tax thing as well. It's at first I'm like, oh, that's not a bad idea, I think. But then the thing is as well that actually it's true when they're explaining that you have assets but you don't have the cash to pay it. Isn't that something like that? I watched something years ago or maybe thing about the owners of Samsung, that they have a very similar situation because there's a very high inheritance tax in South Korea, and basically the owner of Samsung was held in the hospital without stating if he's alive or not or something like that. You would have to look into it, but that was kind of interesting because basically his son that would be inheriting Samsung, he had no money because obviously it's a company that's worth billions, and to pay the inheritance tax, he would have to pay a lot of, like pretty much billions himself to be taking over and things like that. So that was kind of interesting to kind of see. I don't remember the details, but it's something similar here.
The protest, 20,000 people descended into the capital, including Jeremy Clarkson. Upon arrival at the protest, Jeremy was flooded by news channels for interviews, in which he described this as the end.
Government ends farming, which is seemingly what it wants to do.
Yeah.
Where do we get our food from?
If they go on strike, then what?
I don't think farmers will go on strike. I think there's a lot more impactful things. I think farmers can do better than that. I've got some ideas.
How bad could this be for farmers, Jeremy?
It's the end. You actually stop and pay attention. It's the end.
However, when interviewed by Newsnight, he became disgruntled with the BBC's line of questioning.
Well, because I'm here to support farmers.
Right. Are you angry?
It's difficult to be angry on somebody else's behalf. That's like being, yes, no, I'm not angry on someone else's behalf.
So it's not about you. It's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there. Classic. Oh, yeah. It's not the fact that I bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. The fact.
You told the Sunday Times in 2021 that's why you bought it. Sorry?
BBC. Okay, let's start from the beginning. I wanted a shoot, okay? That's even worse to the BBC. I wanted a shoot, which comes with the benefit of not having to pay inheritance tax. Now I do. But people like me will simply put it in a trust. And so long as I live for 7 years, that's fine. And as my daughter said, you will live for 7 years. You might be in a deep freeze at the end of it, but you will live for 7 years. But it's incredibly time consuming to have to do that. And why should all these people have to do that? Why should they?
So one of the reasons Rachel Reeves says she brought this in is to stop wealthy people using it as a way
No,
of
that was the
avoiding-
only reason she did.
Well,
Why
no, the other reason was to raise money for public services.
Are you listening to this?
Have you tried to get a GP appointment lately?
Yes, I
Right.
just recently had a heart attack.
Okay, so you know it's tough.
Yes.
So where should they get the money from if it's not from
From farmers.
With
You hear that, everyone?
with
BBC
assets.
thinks you should be paying for everything. Which,
Clarkson,
okay,
you
do
know
you
it's
know
not the
how many
BBC
people
scheme.
pay inheritance tax in this country?
4% of estates.
What?
4% of estates.
4% pay inheritance tax. 96% of the population of the UK does not pay inheritance tax. After this becomes law, 96% of farmers will.
And where have you got
I
the
know.
96% figure
Well,
from?
you've got 96%. Well, the same place that Rachel Reeves does, from the middle of her head,
Right.
from the Sixth Form Debating Society that she was no doubt a member of, which
So-
formed her opinions and yours.
Some people thought that Clarkson got cooked in this interaction, with one person stating, if Jeremy Clarkson wants to be the face of farming protests, he needs to make an actual case, rather than simply spout out classic BBC to legitimate and simple questions. Jeremy Clarkson becoming a protester trying to shut down London after spending years moaning at Just Stop Oil doing the exact same thing. Superb irony. Anyone else find it a little uncomfortable to see Clarkson go all anti-BBC when he literally made his career there? I mean, the BBC did sack him for punching a producer, so I don't think it's much of a surprise that he doesn't care much for them. However, after the interview, Jeremy made a speech addressing the farmers who made the trip to London.
Okay, so, as we all know, everyone down there, you know a tractor. £200,000 for a medium-sized one. A combine. £500,000. All the equipment costs a fortune. And if you try to price what you're selling to accommodate that, there's just a lot of moaning. You get people saying, well, I shouldn't pay that. I can get a chicken from abroad. Yeah, you can. But it's so full of chlorine, it tastes like a swimming pool with a beak. And then you've got the environmentalists endlessly shouting at you. Oh, your cows, they're altering the composition of the gases in the upper atmosphere, and your fertilizers ruining the trouty freshness of our streams and rivers. And I know sometimes you just think, well, what's the point? We're just trying to make breakfast, lunch and dinner, and it's just this endless whinging and there's no money in it. And the regulations. Some of you down there will know what I'm on about when I say we got a lot of GS4 this year on the farm. And we were told, oh, the sheep will love that. No, they don't. They're standing looking at it in the same way that a 5-year-old looks at an olive. They don't want to eat it. And so we have all of this complication and all of this cost. And there's very, very little money in it. Very little money, as you know. And then we got the budget. Now, I know a lot of people all across the country in all walks of life took a bit of a kick on the shin with that budget. You lot got a knee in the nuts and a light hammer blow to the back of the head. We had pickup trucks, double cab pickup trucks, being reclassified as company cars. 211% tax rise there. £50 carbon tax on a bag of fertiliser. The basic farm payments altered in such a way that we're getting a lot less than we thought we were going to get. And then there was the inheritance tax business. You've heard a lot about it today, and I'm not going to dwell on that. I will just say this. Rachel Reeves has told us, 72% of farmers are going to be unaffected by this.
She'd have wanted to take out the likes of James Dyson and investment bankers and so on. She would have used a sniper's rifle, but she's used a blunderbuss and she's hit all this lot. As I understand it, it was a very rushed last-minute decision. I think it's time for them to say, you know what, we've cocked this one up a bit.
On the 21st of November 2024, 2 days after the protest, Keir Starmer tweeted photos with BlackRock and Bill Gates, stating that we need partnerships like theirs to capitalise on the UK's position as a world-leading hub for investment. So essentially, what one could assume from this is that Keir Starmer is basically shaking his arse for Bill Gates and BlackRock to buy up land when some of that lovely farmland comes up for sale. The following day after the BlackRock tweet, the Daily Express revealed that £500 million is allegedly being used by the government to fund farming projects overseas. In response to the backlash of this investigation, the Prime Minister's spokesman stated, "Our investment into British farmers is an investment in our food security and our national security. When it comes to some investments in projects overseas, the UK has driven scientific advances in food and agriculture which will benefit millions around the world, including UK farmers. Compared to French farmers who dump rubbish and shit in front of government buildings, this was a bit of a walk in the park as protests go. But this story has been mainly dominated by rich multi-millionaire farmers like Clarkson and Andrew Lloyd Webber, who while have a platform and can speak
Andrew Lloyd Webber is a farmer?
their message struggles to gain sympathy because of their vast
I mean,
wealth.
everyone has
But
different
Jeremy has
interests and
become
stuff,
far
but
more than just a rich guy who owns a farm. Through his resources, he's managed to become a spokesperson for not only farmers in the UK, but farmers all across the world who are faced with uncertainties from every angle, from government policies to climate change. The success of his TV show has rippled across the planet, causing the show to be recently renewed for 2 more seasons, which will likely detail the rippling effect this change is going to
probably.
have within the farming
I might
community
have to
and
give it a
showcase
chance
some of the
again.
poverty that exists within farming. At the time of recording this video, the government has no plans to reverse its stance on this policy change. Thank you so much for watching this video. It really...
Yeah, well, that was interesting, obviously. I heard about protests and stuff like that and talking about farmers in UK, but honestly, I'm not in UK. And I'm just gonna be blunt here. I didn't really get interest in it because it doesn't really affect me anymore. Like, it doesn't affect me in general because, first of all, I'm not living in UK. I don't have a family in UK, and UK is not even in the European Union anymore. So their policies doesn't have any effect for the European Union. So, although it probably have some effect on Irish market, but I don't think it's as big as we could used to be. So, and about the Clarkson and his farm, what I've seen, I watched it mostly with my sister, and what I've seen, it was really interesting. But like I said, I haven't really watched it, so I might give it a chance again. Cause why not? Thank you very much for watching, and I see you tomorrow. Bye.